Wednesday morning at JM and the AM. Well, Rabbi Justin Pines is in our studio. This is a conversation that I have been very anxious to have. And finally, I jumped on the opportunity a few days ago, made arrangements with Rabbi Pines to be in our studio. And we'll get to hear about the JBS and his organization's impact on cable TV and what's happening with the network, et cetera, et cetera. Rabbi Justin Pines, a pleasure to welcome you to JM and the AM.
Thank you so much. What did I say? First time, long time? So long time fan, first time appearing on the show. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And you've had an interesting career path. Wouldn't you agree that that's an accurate way of portraying it?
I think that makes sense. Yes. That's
how does one become the CEO of JBS?
Hashem's in charge of everything, I guess, is the short answer.
That we know.
And it depends how long you want. But the very headline, and we can share as much as you want, is that I was a corporate lawyer for several years. I went to Harvard Law School, but I made a turn somewhere and became a rabbi. And then, my Jewish career also took me to JBS. But I'm happy to share as much or as little as you want about that.
Interesting. We have this shtick for many decades that when someone has drifted from a certain background to, let's say, Orthodox, not making the comparison, I'm just saying as an example, Orthodox Judaism, they changed their life completely. So I will always say to them, you had it all. Why on earth would you want to pursue this type of observant background, just as an example? So in your case, I could say, Harvard Law, from what we're told, and I know very little about academia up front and personal, but from what we're told, Harvard Law, you write your own ticket, essentially, and you never have to worry about a career path once you leave Harvard Law School. And then you go ahead and veer off of that path.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I like to think that that's, I took advantage of that. Now I get to interview my heroes as my day job, which is crazy. I sit with, some of the leading Jewish thinkers of the day as part of the show that I lead, Jewish Insights with Justin Pines. And I don't know if it's because I went to Harvard Law or because Hashem, smiled on me, but for some reason I get to spend an hour a week sitting with someone who's inspired me, who I want to help inspire others and learn Torah from them.
And the background from Harvard helps book guests.
I think, I don't know if it helped book guests, but I think everything leads to everything. So I think certainly it helped sharpen my mind, help the way I think, job applications along the way, certainly using the word Harvard helps for sure.
Right.
I'll give a shout out to Penn also because, in Englewood, I'm surrounded by 5 of my 7 Penn roommates, I guess, live in Englewood. So that's definitely a big part of it as well. I'm very grateful for my time at Penn as well.
And do you cringe when now people mention you and Harvard in the same sense? Is there a little bit of cringe because of what's happening up there or what has been going on over the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it's really, I think with a lot of news, it's really hard to really be in a position to give like a deep, impressive thought. I'm not on Harvard campus right now.
Right.
Certainly from where I'm sitting, it seems like Penn and Harvard both were in bad shape around October 7th, and it feels like Penn has taken more steps to work on that immediately than Harvard has from what I'm seeing at my distance.
Right.
So I think...
and you would say that's Penn-like, right? Like you would say that if someone would say to you, one is going to act in a certain way and one will act differently, you probably could have guessed which was which. Would that be accurate?
I guess so. I think so. I mean, I certainly, when I was there, Penn had a super vibrant Jewish community.
Right.
When I was at Harvard, it also was a very healthy Jewish community. It was different. I think, and I always reflect on the fact that Penn, I was able to be picky, if that makes sense. There were so many Orthodox Jews that you could find the ones that also overlap the specific hobbies you had. And at Harvard, it was like, oh, you're Orthodox, I'm Orthodox, we're going to be friends regardless of our backgrounds, which is also a kind of a hidden blessing. But I think that I'm not so close to the leadership of either school, both in terms of the Jewish leadership and the administration. Penn, I'm involved with the Hill a bit, and I know they've really, focused on really trying to strengthen the relationship with the administration and use this time as a time for repair.
Interesting. Rabbi Justin Pines is here, and we'll get to JBS. But in all seriousness, when one is at Harvard Law, even before graduation, are firms around the country seeking you out? Like, are you inundated with requests for interviews?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a formal program. You have there's on-campus interviews. It's kind of set up for you. And so so
it's like rabbinic placement.
Exactly, it's like rabbinic placement, and they show up, and it's it's a few weeks. I think your second year before your second summer, you meet all different firms.
So you must feel like a free agent. You must feel like having people seek you.
Yes.
Most people in employment don't enjoy that type of episode.
Sure. Yes. It's definitely, it feels like there's there's a limited number of choices in front of you. Certainly running a Jewish cable channel is not one of them at the time. It's mostly either corporate law, public interest law, which is like working for a nonprofit, or government law are really the three most common paths.
And you went straight to a New York firm?
I went to Paul Weiss, yeah.
Which is New York.
And
when someone says to you, now you are the CEO of JBS, Jewish Broadcasting Service. It's got an impact. It's got a footprint all around this country, right? There's basically no corner of this country that can't access it.
Almost anywhere where there's cable. Now we're also on YouTube and podcasts as well, but on almost every cable provider, we're there.
And if someone says to you, and I know you're not the founder, and I don't think the founder's even with us anymore, am I right?
Rabbi Mark Golub passed away in January of 2023.
Right. So you can't really speak to the history from that point of view, but if someone would say to you, what is the mission? What is the purpose? Why does JBS exist? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I think in some ways I was also drawn to the mission as well. I think that kind of the two core areas that Rabbi Golub established, and I think I've kind of continued, is celebrating the best of the Jewish people and being pro-Israel. I think the language that I would use now is really helping people connect with the Jewish people, the Jewish land, and the Jewish religion. Those kind of feel like what we're trying to do.
Did October 7th make that more complicated, or you're in a lane where October 7th only enhanced this type of programming for the community that you're addressing?
Great. So I'm gonna zoom out for 1 second, and they'll come back in. So I'm the grandchild of 4 survivors, which is a huge part of my identity. My mother's father, Murray Pentier, was saved by Oscar Schindler.
Wow.
That was that shaped so much of my childhood and my adulthood, and why I think I'm on this planet. Commitment to the Jewish people, commitment to my family, commitment to never again. I think alongside those, what I've realized over the past 20 years myself is that there was kind of this obsession with never again, but we didn't spend a lot of time talking about, what are we preserving? What's the importance of the Jewish people? I remember the way it stuck out to me the most is I've done 2 trips to Poland. The first one I went to was only focused on the destruction, and it came home feeling very empty. And the second one, we spent more than half the trip talking about what Jewish life was like before the Churban. And I think that to me really made me realize that there's it's not just about making sure we protect Jewish bodies, it's about actually preserving and growing the Jewish religion. And I think when I came into this role, I actually came in January of 24, so right after October 7th.
Right.
And of course there's a lot more attention on Jewish identity, on Jewish news. I had, people advising me, you should become a 24/7 news channel. Everyone wants to know about Israel, do news all day, every day. And my thesis instead has been to really use the energy coming towards Jewish news to learn about what's happening in Israel and try to grow that energy into learning more about Torah and about Judaism and about the Jewish people. And so we still, of course, we have daily news, like Channel 11 or Channel 4, we have our 6 o'clock news and our 11 o'clock news. But after the news is over, we have, fascinating conversations with leading Jewish thinkers of the day, because we want people to come to find out what's going on in Israel, but stay to actually grow in their Judaism.
And you do include, in all seriousness, include some Jewish music. I assume it's part of the cultural experience that you're trying to spread. And you do include actual real, and people will know what I mean by this, real Torah study. You include real, people can get, hardcore Torah thoughts on a regular basis.
That's right. We have Gemara Shiurim, we have Rabbi Sachs and Rabbi Riskin on the Parsha every week. Both of them. We have cartoons on the Parsha. We have, different lectures about Torah itself. I'll say on the music point, I think it's so fascinating because when I just read Sarah Hurwitz's book as a Jew, which I highly recommend, very fascinating book that kind of talks about anti-Semitism in America. She was Obama's speechwriter. Right. I had her as a guest on, and one of the things she points out that's just so interesting, which I can't stop thinking about, is that because we live in America, there's this assumption that there's holiday season is Christmas, and so we're supposed to have our holiday songs. So there's this focus on coming up with Hanukkah songs.
Right.
Like we have the Adam Sound. That's the Jewish music time.
Right.
And then it took me a year at the helm of JBS to realize, no, our holiday music sound is Elul. There should be music around, the way, Christians are listening to Christmas music for a month leading up to Christmas. Correct. We don't need to do that in December for Hanukkah. That's not our main holiday, right? We should be listening to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Elul music the entire month of Elul.
You'd never make it at Hallmark.
Right, exactly. But it was such a big aha aha moment. And then I reached out to Eitan Katz. I said, we want to run Le Mancha and Kikarov on our network, and we'll promote your tour and that kind of thing. And so we really shifted to make sure that we're adding high quality Jewish music for sure.
Is it hard to come about content? You're 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Is it difficult to come about quality content to present?
I would say, thank God, it generally it is not. I think it's more for us. I like the metaphor I think of is kind of like being a chef, if that makes sense, which is there's endless Jewish ingredients, and we're trying to pick which ingredients to bring together to present to our audience. And, what are the things that they want to be tasting in Elul, and what are the things that they want to be tasting the week of Sukkot, and what do they want to taste on, Friday afternoon before Shabbos, and what do they want to taste on a Tuesday night, if that makes sense.
So you're selective about the dishes that you serve.
Exactly. We're trying to really, and I alluded to this before, I think for me, I had a very unique upbringing in that I went to Solomon Schechter Day School in West Orange, which is conservative day school.
Right.
I was a member of Suburban Torah and then later Eitz Chaim Orthodox shuls in Livingston, and I went to Camp Starlight, which, for lack of a better term, is a reform camp.
Oh gosh, we used to pass Starlight on the way to Bar Shah all the time.
Exactly. I still have memories of Thou Shall Rest being the song we sang Friday night, and we sang Fiddler on the Roof, May the Lord Protect and Defend You, instead of Shalom Aleichem, which in many ways exposed me at an early age. And I think it's very hard to do these today, and I realize in the Orthodox world it's very hard, but being exposed to different ways of thinking kind of enriched me more and helped me find my way. And I think one of the things that we do very well on JBS is we really try to bring different voices from different parts of the Jewish people, because I think we're a richer community when you're hearing from people on all sides.
And from the other angle, you have an amazing advantage because you know what those people want to hear and experience. I wouldn't know what the Starlight parents would want to experience on their cable TV, but you know it. You know what they're looking for.
Sure.
Which is pretty cool. Rabbi Justin Pines is here, CEO of JBS. How about some nuts and bolts? People are listening. They want to know how to access all the programming that we're talking about. It is 24 hours a day. What do you suggest?
Great. So first of all, 300,000 people watch every month just on the cable providers alone before getting to digital.
Right.
So if you are a cable subscriber, the local channels in New York are DirecTV, we're on channel 388, Optimum, we're on 138, Spectrum, we're on channel 219, and Comcast Xfinity, we're on 1684, and Verizon Fios, we're on 798. If I said that too fast, just go to the jbstv.org website, and you can find out more about, where to www.jbstv.org, and you can find all of our providers. If you're not a cable subscriber or a satellite subscriber, we have a YouTube channel, we have an Instagram account. It's all jbstv.org. Everything that we put out now, we also put out as a podcast as well.
And I'm very familiar with the 219. I'm a Spectrum customer, so I'm very familiar with that channel. And guess what, folks? Once you tune in once in a while and then become a regular viewer, you will have no problem accessing it, especially if you're a numbers guy like I am. Anyway, Rabbi Justin Pines is here. We're talking about JBS. How is it dealing with the cable companies? Now, once this has been established and you're on 219 with Spectrum, does anything need to be done? Like, do you have to maintain a relationship with anybody, or is it just, things flow along each and every day?
Great. So like anything else I've learned now that I'm a working adult, everything involves doing the work to get it there. Even tracking down the Eitan Katz Le Mancha video, we have to reach out to Eitan, have the conversation, those kinds of things. I am fortunate that almost all of this work was done before I arrived on the scene. We've established relationships with these cable providers, and yes, we have to comply with certain things. I think, for example, one thing we're learning now is that as our budget grows, which thank God we're continuing to grow very, very nicely, we're going to reach a point where all of our programs have to have subtitles, closed captions, which obviously in our heart of hearts is something that we want to do, and people ask us all the time, and we've been trying to keep up, but it is a ton of work to do that, and it's a high cost. So things like that we're trying to learn to make sure we're compliant. But the
cable companies themselves, is it difficult to maintain that relationship, or like I said earlier, things basically just flow now day to day? Yeah,
I think we just, we have to keep up with certain standards that they require, that kind of thing. And it goes the other way sometimes as well. Sometimes you put something up and it looks like it didn't come through in HD, and you're like, why is it not in HD? And you have to call and follow up. But for the most part, it's a healthy relationship.
And you have colleagues, right? There are other cable channels that try to attract a Jewish audience, right?
Yeah, I think that there's kind of three cable channels. There's I-24, of course, which is really a full-time 24/7 news channel. And there's JLTV, which is a little bit, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I think it leans more towards, what's the word? I'll let them speak for themselves, but there's different. Those are the three channels that are out there. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, if a fourth would be established, would cable companies drift to it? And the reason I'm asking this is because as a radio guy, I've always been shocked at, and I know a lot of people at Sirius XM, but there's never been a serious, spelled differently, effort to get a Jewish channel on. They do something around Hanukkah time, funny enough, as you mentioned earlier, but nothing, that reflects a real desire to have 24-hour Jewish programming. Yet cable television, as far as we're concerned, they're drowning in Jewish channels.
Right.
What do you think the difference is?
Between TV and radio,
yeah.
You're saying? I don't know if it's TV and radio. That's a good question. I wonder, I think YouTube TV, as far as I can tell, does not currently. YouTube has tons of Jewish content.
Right.
YouTube TV, I don't think, has a Jewish channel. So I wonder if it's more about the newer platforms. I think the cable channels already have tons of, we're next to the Christian channel and African American History channel and those kinds of things.
And I guess there are a lot more channels.
Right, and there are more channels. And I think that there's an interest. And I think, from what I've heard, again, these meetings were before my time, I think also it's a lot of it is just like getting in the meeting and sitting with the CEO of, one of these cable providers and making the point that it's important to have a Jewish channel on television.
Today, on social media especially, many people who are anti-Israel take the opportunity to use any format and any post, including some as innocuous as our, music reminders, to make their point of view known. Does that happen in your end of the industry?
Yes, for sure.
A lot of hate out there?
There's a lot of hate out there. We have, we post clips from my show and other shows, and, not every once in a while, pretty commonly, someone, once it's
Free
found
Palestine.
by people, they'll just come after you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's, by the way, it's not even only Free Palestine stuff. I think, the culture, unfortunately, of social media these days is people feel very anonymous, and they'll just
say whatever they want.
Yeah. I won't even reference the rabbi I'm talking about, but I had a rabbi on, and people were complaining about his haircut. I'm just he's like a gadol, and I sat with him, and he's sharing beautiful Torah, and they're like, this guy needs a haircut. And I'm like, what world are we in that this is people are sitting at home and sending that's your contribution to the conversation, shkayach, you did great work. So I think I think in general, people sometimes feel that social media is a way to get their angst out, and they're looking sometimes to drop it on us sometimes.
The whole world is looking at this New York City election. Do you spend time on any of this, or is it because I know what it's like for me over all these 40 years. I really pick and choose, what road is worth going down and what's not worth it. What's been your point of view on this?
Yeah, so on my show, I don't, Jewish Insights with Justin Pines, I don't focus heavily on politicians. I think I'm the only person who's had Tzipi Livni and Ambassador David Friedman on the same show, which I think also speaks to the pluralism.
That's good.
And I think is really important. I really think, I remember actually, I was doing a speaking tour in liberal synagogues a couple years ago. Ambassador Friedman's book had just come out, and it was the one about the Abraham Accords.
Right.
And I remember just saying, show of hands, I'm in rooms of hundreds of people in these synagogues, who's read this book? 0 hands. And I just remember thinking, we've gotten to a point where there's so much anger across political aisles in the Jewish people that this person was one of the closest people to one of the most important peace agreements with Arab countries during our lives, and you won't pick up the book because he's a Republican? What's happening here? And I think that's really something I try to push back against, is to try to say, no, there are good people on both sides of the aisles here. Find the good people and work with those people. And so I think generally I stay away from politics. I've had the two of them on, which I think is important for different reasons. But we have within, we're a 24/7 channel. There's all different programs. So, we have David Harris on there. We have JLM Minute from JNS on there with Alex Trayman on there. We have For Heaven's Sake with Danielle Hartman and Yossi Klein Halevi on there. We have Alana Stein-Haynes Show, Texting in Real Life, on there. And so there's really kind of a variety of different programs, and they all kind of come at it different ways. And the ones that tend to be more politically driven are more politically driven. I will say something totally that's just been sitting with me that I think is really interesting. It's based on a Wall Street Journal article that I read, and this is just a hot take, and take it as you will. I'm definitely not a political expert, but one of the things that I read was this kind of, from where the Democratic Party is sitting, because Mamdani in theory is going to do so well in New York, that's a data point, and it's all about data points in politics, and that in New Jersey there's a push to bring in the Republican.
Correct.
And so there could be actually a data point where the Democratic Party looks at this and says, you know what, enough with moderate Democrats, because moderate Democrats are not winning in a state like New Jersey. Look at Mamdani. He's a radical and he's doing well. We need to get behind more radical Democrats. And that, to me, is one of those where it's people in the community are trying so hard to do good, and, sometimes you end up shooting yourself in the foot. Let's say.
100%. And it's funny you mentioned this because, we concentrate so much on the down the ballot, practice, people, basically voting the same party. And yet we see how an election in New York is having the exact opposite effect in New Jersey. Like the neighborly thing to do would be to protest their vote across the river.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Right. Exactly. So as I say to friends of mine who are anxious about these things, Hashem hopefully has a plan, and we'll each do our part of whatever we can do, and hopefully good things will happen.
How is JBS supported?
JBS is almost exclusively supported by viewers, which is an amazing fact. Yeah.
And that means you're hearing from people all around the country.
Yes, around the country. I just got a beautiful letter from a deacon this week, along with his, what did he call it? He had some kind of Christian term for his contribution to the people.
Tithing?
Yeah, something like that. Something from the pew, he called it. But I think it's...
That probably means like a rabbinic discretion fund.
Exactly. We have over 4,000 individuals give donations to JBS. Sometimes with opinions, sometimes not with opinions, but we have, one of my favorite things actually is those times of years where I have a chance to reach out to viewers and thank them, because the stories you hear, my mother is blind and she listens to JBS all day and she loves it. Or, I'll tell you two that really stick with me. I consistently hear from people, I used to watch Fox News all day, or I used to watch CNN all day, and I switched to JBS, and I'm so much happier and more fulfilled because I used to just have anxiety all day, every day, and now I feel my
They lived in fear.
Right.
Until they discovered your
That's
cable
the industry.
channel.
The industry is to encourage people to live in fear.
Look at the election in New York.
Right, exactly.
Everything that's coming out now is all based on fear.
I blame O.J. Simpson. I think once people realized there was so much money to be made from news, it just went totally off the rails after that.
That's interesting.
That was the number one program that people were paying attention to. And then I was like, wow, if we can make news a 24/7 thing, then we can make money from that. And I'm trying to really give people the space to not live in fear and not live in anxiety and have a healthy relationship with Torah and Hashem. So I think that's one piece. And the other thing that always sticks with me is I had Rabbi David Aaron from the Old City, who's a Kabbalist. He's amazing. I had him as a guest, and I got this long letter from someone who was in their 80s. He had been the chair of several national Jewish organizations, had sat with multiple presidents on behalf of the Jews, prime ministers of Israel, prime ministers of European countries, and said, I spent 60 years serving the Jewish people as a lay leader, and since I was in elementary school, I had not had a critical thought about my relationship with the divine, with God, until I saw your program. And so to me, that's it's, again, we focus, I mentioned before, the heavy focus on never again when it comes to the Holocaust without focusing on Jewish, Judaism. And similarly, this whole focus on Jews' approach and showing up in politics and helping the Jewish people. But to have someone who's sitting there representing us for 60 years in a row, and not once did he have a chance to have a meaningful, thoughtful conversation about how to relate to the divine, to me feels like such a miss. And so those letters, really give me fire to be we have to keep doing what we're doing.
And then on top of that, those of us who are frustrated by the anti-Semitism, by the atmosphere that's not always pleasant, you get, at least half the time, I hope, based on what you're saying, you get both a reaction from the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world that's very promising, that's very upbeat, that's very appreciative of our tradition.
For sure. We get a lot of positive feedback, and I think, that's another piece of this, which I think is so interesting about JBS. I've been everywhere. I've spent time at Gush and Oraita and Pardes and Machon
Starlight
Shlomo.
at Gush.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
I used to call myself
what was the last one you said? Machon
Shlomo.
By
in Harnof, Rabbi Gershonfeld.
Rabbi Gershonfeld.
Yeah, I had Rabbi Gershonfeld on the show. He's amazing. He's a hero of mine. But I've traveled the Jewish world and learned from all those people, if that makes sense. And I think that, there is a small percentage of us, I imagine some of them are the listeners of the show, that have access to the inner of the Jewish world. And, they're deciding between which shiur to listen to that week, if that makes sense.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that you reach when you're on cable on a broad platform that aren't necessarily going to have access in that way, and that's a way in for them, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish. I remember I was at the gym and a person came up to me and said, I love your show, and I got to know him. He's a non-Jewish carpenter. And he just said, similar story. He's like, I was so fed up with news. I was just looking for normal content. I was flipping through, and I saw you interviewing someone, and I just stuck around for the conversation, and now I watch. And I was
amazing.
It's crazy.
You must be, I'm trying to figure out if you're older than I think or younger than I think. I mean, you do remember the OJ trial, so that gives us an indication that you're at least around for that era.
I mostly remember the Knicks games and the OJ trial at the same time.
Right.
The Knicks were good, but
but if you're mentioning Oraita, Gush, and Starlight, and all these experiences, you've been around, as they say.
I'm 42. This is a good one. When I was graduating Penn, I got into Harvard Law School, but I deferred for a year to go to Israel. So that was my first time that I learned in yeshiva. I didn't do a gap year.
And that year was where?
That was at Pardes.
Wow.
And that was kind of my first, I had this idea in my mind that I would spend a year in Israel and learn all of Judaism and then go back to my professional job. Because I felt like I had been president of Hillel. I felt like imposter syndrome. I was like, I need to know more Torah to, reflect and lead the Jews in this way. And I thought, I'm just going to go learn it all and then I'll go back to my career path. And of course, once you sit in
life happens.
And also once you sit in a Beit Midrash for an hour, you realize oh my God, this is an ocean. This is gonna be the rest of my life. I want to learn this forever. There's so much to learn here. And then it was all about finding ways to get back. I was, there was someone named Yoni Greenwald. I was learning Gemara with him before work when I worked at Paul Weiss to try to squeeze in some learning. And then eventually I went to Machon Shlomo for a summer, and then I went to Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, which where I got my smicha.
Right.
And then I am very close to Rabbi Avi Weiss and Rabbi Yitz Greenberg. And then I spent time in Gush. I spent time in Oraita, just trying to run around and learn Torah wherever I can from whoever I can.
Rabbi Friedman.
Yes, the best.
We're a high school.
Oh, really?
High school mates.
He's such a tzaddik. He's really such a tzaddik.
He's unbelievable.
Yes, I know. I haven't had him on yet. He's one of the ones on my list. I'm like,
he's going to be remarkable.
I know.
His public presentations are fantastic.
He's amazing. I listened to his shiurim, and I got to grab him next time he's in New York.
Unbelievable. So you've really been well-rounded, so to speak. Are you now? I'm not testing you. I'm just curious. Is there a rabbi or learning center that you're still linked to now, or that's not part of your daily schedule?
So I'm not in a yeshiva now. I guess we'll see. God willing, one day. I'll
you have aspirations for that.
I mean, I think everyone imagines one day being able to sit and
right.
in a Beit Midrash and learn, but I think that's not the stage of my life that I'm in right now. Certainly, I have 4 little kids, and we're busy, and I have a job and all those things.
How old's the oldest of those children?
They go from 3 to 10.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're right in the mix of things.
Right in the mix of it. Yeah, exactly. But there's tons. Englewood is exploding. That's where I live with Torah learning.
How long have you been there?
We've been there since 2018, I want to say.
The reason I'm asking is because you're there 7 years, and because I'm here, I'm somewhat familiar with that neighborhood. It's a completely different complexion now than 7 years ago.
Yes, it's a totally different thing. It's unbelievable what's happening there. There's the Englewood Torah Center. There's, breakaway learning things. Right. People are organizing, learning in people's homes. Chavrutas, everything in between. I think Palisades Avenue, our main street, went from 1 or 2 kosher establishments. Right. I think we're up to 7 or 8 now.
It's pretty amazing.
It's really changed a lot. And I think COVID, it's hard to say COVID helped because COVID was COVID, right. But I think at some point during COVID, I think tennis became very popular and learning Torah became very popular.
Right. And also I think there's been an increase in spiritual events, unique spirit. I think Englewood resident Nader Balor is somewhat responsible for that with the Rosh Chodesh program, right? Sure. A lot of interesting spiritual encounters that people are offered in communities like yours.
I think that's exactly right. I think that, and he's a great example, and there's several more. I think people are, using their energy and their means and their time to try to create experiences and special places. I think we had Mordechai Shapiro came to the Perm Suda at Rebecca Seuss's home last year. It was a party. People are kind of just let's go for this. I remember when I first moved there, a lot of people didn't take off for Purim.
Right.
It was kind of the night of Purim was the night, then you squeezed into McGill in the morning, and now it's totally shifted, and people are like, this is an important day. We want to be together in community.
Wow. This whole shift and as I pointed out, differentiation between now and 7 years ago when you moved in, it is remarkable how so many of us, especially as we get older and we see the direction of society and we lament, oh my gosh, social media is bringing us down and so many other aspects of life are only going to infiltrate and start ruining our community. And then it's amazing what the pushback, and I know it's a wrong word, but the reaction, it's amazing what the reaction is like. As you just said, the increase of spirituality, the increase in Torah study, taking the family experience much more seriously than before. Mm-hmm. It's remarkable. That's the way it turns out when we think that things are going all downhill.
Right. It's interesting also because we've had kind of 2 big events, right? There's October 7th. There's also COVID.
Right.
And so they were different, COVID wasn't an attack on the Jewish people, but it was a reckoning and was a moment of, what are we doing here? What's important to us? You're stuck home with your family. What do you want to do with that family? Is the goal that I don't know, whatever you want. Everyone wants to get in good shape and they want to excercise more. Is it you want to spend more time learning? Yeah. You want to bake more? You want to, what does everyone make? Sourdough. Right? Everyone learns how to make sourdough, which we're very grateful. Lots of our friends give us sourdough still on Shabbos. But I think that was a moment where people are like, wow, I really want to invest in my Judaism. I really want to find meaning there. That was a piece of it. I think October 7th, I wonder if October 7th had the same impact on Torah learning. I think COVID really had an impact on Torah learning for us. I think for me, my experience is obviously aside from activism, I think October 7th had a real impact on davening. I think a lot of people came out of October 7th very shifted, tons of Tehillim chats, and I feel like people kind of brought that spiritual tool back into their toolbox.
Plus, they wanted to be in synagogue and enjoy the community experience and feel like they're really making a difference.
Yeah, sing Afenu together. I just feel like COVID kind of pushed back on people were like, all right, we're getting rid of Amnus Mira. It was kind of that. And then October 7th was like, okay, learning Torah is one thing, but how can I have impact? Again, aside from sending things and sending money and all that work, I think there was kind of a spiritual revival that came with that as well.
Great analysis.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. I'm sorry the clock has sort of grabbed us at this point, but hopefully we'll do this again. Why don't you review for everybody how people can access JBS, what website they need to have, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. The easiest thing is just go to www.jbstv.org, and that's where you can see the list of all of our different shows and also what channels to find us. If you are watching on cable, I'll say it one more time, DirecTV, channel 388, Optimum 138, Spectrum 219, Comcast Xfinity 1684, and Verizon Fios 798. My show, Jewish Insights, premieres Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock, but you can see there's a plethora of beautiful shows.
And it's a weekly?
Every week. I think I've missed like 2 weeks in a year and a half at this point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've been very anxious, as you heard from my intro, to have you in studio, and you've been on my list for the last year. You know the list, of all the people that you'd like to have on. But you know who really encouraged me over the last few months?
Sure.
To have you in and have this conversation?
Who?
The one and only Eli Schwabel.
Oh, that's so nice.
Eli said that he said to me, and I think it's in some WhatsApp group with the three of us that he created like half a year ago.
Sure.
But he alluded to the fact that we would get along very well. So thank God it worked out.
I mean, and I love a shout out to Eli Schwabel, one of the best.
He's amazing.
Best.
Yeah. Justin, thank you.
Thank you. Really such a pleasure to be here.
A real pleasure. Rabbi Justin Pines, JBS, JBSTV.org, correct?
That's right.
JBSTV.org. Achenu b'Yisrael Nachum Segal, our brothers and sisters in Israel, we are with you. It's your favorite America's one and only Jewish Moments in the Morning radio program, heard on listener-sponsored digital radio around the world, web at NachumSegal.com, on the Nachum Segal Network, and of course on the beloved NSN app.